It's going to stay that way because these decks are powerful, Kyle. These decks have been powerful throughout the entire weekend. Heck, they've been powerful for a very long time, as they have been maybe the most dominant decks coming out of the World Championships in 2019.
That's right, and we have also had the privilege of casting at the Latin American International Championships, and we saw both of these decks performing incredibly well, making it to the final stage. Once again, these decks are going to be in at the same table, just in different hands.
Indeed they are, and Zach Lesage is going to be the first player featured here. He did go through many players on his way to the top 8, and of course, defeating some of the best players in the world in that star-studded top 8. No doubt that he is one of the top players in the world today.
Yeah, that's right. Zach Lesage is one of the better players we certainly have. He has been playing through all of these internationals. I believe he's only missed 2 internationals, and his brother was also there and made all of he also made points at these events. So Lesage has never missed points at an international, and he decided to spice it up a little more and make it to the final table this time around.
And maybe they're about to add a championship to their dominance there, as we do see Zach Lesage. Of course, his opponent, Nico Alabas, on the right, is no stranger to success himself, as he is part of that European contingent, that European team which just happens to basically win just about everything.
That's right. He's playing an incredible deck this time around. I'm really excited to see how that works for him. He was able to reach a top 16 finish last year, and this time he's coming around to the final stage. We also see some of those finalist marks on his belt. Would certainly like a little more champion there.
Yeah, of course. Being a special event champion, that's no weak accomplishment, but adding an international championship to your reign, that's exactly where both of these players want to be, and they are both one win away from being able to pull that off. Now, we do have Zach Lesage on that Reshiram and Charizard Tag Team GX deck, which used to be so powerful, but it felt like it fell to the wayside because of Welder being, quote-unquote nerfed, because it was no longer able to be played on turn 1 if you went first. Everybody thought that maybe the days of Welder were over. Instead, we have both Reshiram and Charizard, and of course Mewtwo, both playing that great supporter card.
All right, let's take a look at these prize cards, because that is pretty huge. Over for Nico, he lost 4 pretty big attacks that could come up relevant in this matchup. His Charizard GX is a way to deal 300 damage in a single turn, remove a Reshiram and Charizard off the board. He's not going to have access to that, and he also can also use this interesting strategy of using Naganadel and Magcargo. He doesn't have either of those this time around.
There is that handshake, meaning we are about to begin Game 1 here of this Masters Division Finals. Nico going first, starting with that Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX, going up against the Dene.
That's right. Both of these are Welder decks. So interesting to see how the first turn is going to affect these players. Usually want to accelerate those energies as fast as possible. We might be seeing both these players focusing on Victini V so that they can start to accelerate in other ways.
Of course, interestingly enough, cards like Giant Hearth actually help both players in this kind of a matchup, as they both really want to get multiple fire energies into their hand every single turn, especially if they can pair it with a Welder. Now, the Giant Hearth does allow the Solgaleo to hit the discard pile, which is great for Nico, as that's one of the better attackers at the beginning of the game. However, of course, you are sometimes threatened by explosive starts on Zach's side, and if Zach can start getting multiple energies into play on his own first turn, then perhaps Solgaleo may not be fast enough to combat that.
That's right. We're just going to have to see how that works out for these players on the opening turns of the game. So crucial to see where these energies land. And Nico already in a pretty decent spot so far. Have to see if his hand is able to keep up with his strategy.
Nico taking a good look at his deck, trying to find out what's prized. And remember, there are many things that could be prized here for Nico. So if he got a great look at it, then he's going to have to change his strategy up from what he would have hoped to be able to pull off. Of course, remember, these players got to the top 2 at the end of last night, which meant that they had basically overnight to think about this matchup and come up with a game plan. You have to believe that Nico's game plan is out the window after seeing those prizes.
Yeah, and it's very tough for him. But, of course, once you start drawing any prize cards, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to find these Pokemon, and maybe you can find them just at the perfect time, of course, by way of discarding them with a Giant Hearth.
Nico playing Blacephalon into Dene, Dede changing, finding new cards, but instead having to just pass the turn. Remember, no supporter card from the first turn if you are the first player. Now, Zach Lesage starting with a Dedenne GX, obviously not where you want to be. It's a very vulnerable Pokemon, and especially when it gives up 2 prizes. At the same time, you want to have it in your deck so that you can Dede change like Nico did. So, not a great start for Zach there, but he does get to play the first supporter of the game. Remember, Zach is really hoping to get multiple fire energies into play on this first turn. If he can do it through Welder, that's great. But if he can accelerate even more energies with things like, of course, Volcanion and Victini V, then that's where he's really going to want to be. That's where he's going to want to put so much pressure on Nico when it comes to energies that Nico will not be able to miss any Welders from that point on.
Yeah, well, you mentioned that Volcanion. We are not actually going to see that out of Zach. He only plays the Victini V as a way to accelerate. That was something that he mentioned in talking to me yesterday, was something that he really misses in this matchup. So he is going to be limited to just that Victini for acceleration outside of Welder.
Lucky for him, Victini's just as powerful, if not more so, if you can get a great setup like Zach is potentially going to be able to do so here.
Oh, man, he has his Lucky Egg, but doesn't know where to put it just yet. It's a card that he'd like to put on a Pokemon that's attacking. Instead, he's just going to have to throw it onto a Dedenne.
Aptly named Lucky Egg, by the way, as it's gotten him all the way to the finals there. Zach Lesage now Dede changing, so that's 2 Dedennes in play. And you start to see how the Dedennes really start to become a problem for Zach in multiples. Now he's only got 3 bench spots available, and he still doesn't have an attacker.
Yeah, that's right. Generally, Zach likes to have options for himself. Maybe if he could get a Vulpix down and then have some Pokemon to choose to attack with. Usually having multiple attackers when you're playing against a big hitting Mewtwo Perfection is exactly where you want to be. Instead, he's going to have to just choose from these 3 bench spots where he's going to go.
Now you see Zach actually discarding 2 fire energies to play Fiery Flint and find himself 4 fire energies, then discarding 1 of those fire energies to find 2 more with Giant Hearth. That is deck thinning at its finest right there.
Yeah, just got to get these out of the way, and you can always just find them later by way of using your Victini Prism Star to get a big knockout on a tag team Pokemon. So throwing energies away early here is certainly something that benefits Zach. Finds the Welder.
A huge Welder there, as of course he still doesn't have any attackers, but he really wants to start building some up.
And we'll see what the rest of his hand has for him. Certainly don't want to play these energies onto a Dedenne, but got to keep moving.
Yeah, I mean, he's found energies, he's found Welders, he has not found Pokemon. That's the one big thing missing from his from his hand, and you see a Welder for 2 fire energies onto Dedenne.
Yeah, it's not good and it's okay at the same time. Of course, you have ways to use those fire energies later on. You could use Turtonator and discard those energies, and they seem relatively safe on a Dedenne with a Lucky Egg. You also could move those energies with a Heatran GX, so there's plenty of options available for Zach, even though that isn't the optimal placement.
How about this, though? That Victini V found with the Quick Ball. You already know that there's so many fire energies in the discard pile. Just about the only thing missing is another attacking Pokemon, and guess what? That's exactly what that Quick Ball is for. Quick Ball discarding another fire energy, and now you're going to find a target for Victini V to spread its flames with. Now, this actually ends up looking like it's going to be a great turn for Zach, with the exception of, does he have a way to retreat that Jirachi? That's the real question right now.
Yeah, I am curious to see. He's also eyeing up that Reshiram and Charizard, which is a card that is pretty volatile in this matchup. It looks like instead he's going to go ahead and use that Heatran GX. It's a great way to take all of these accelerated energies, move them up, and take a huge tag team knockout. Could put Zach in a great spot early on in the match.
We're seeing him put all of these energies to use. All he needs to do is find a way to get that Jirachi onto the bench. If he has a way to do that, he will have a powerful start off of that Victini V spreading its flames. If not, though, then he's eyeing down a Mewtwo and Mew.
It looks like a new art
There's
switch.
that switch. That switch allows the Victini to become the active Pokemon. Spreading Flames is going to be able to accelerate 3 fire energies onto any Pokemon that Zach would like to have. Or any amount of Pokemon, I should say.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go ahead and place these around. It's pretty smart of him. Just make sure that these energies go all over the place so that when you do use Heatran, it's less of a target.
He was questioning whether he was comfortable placing that last energy on the Victini V with 190 hit points. It seems like it's comfortable, but at the same time, you know how explosive Mewtwo and Mew can get. Now it's back to Nico. This was an incredible turn out of Zach after what looked to be like it was going to what looked to be like a very weak start at the beginning.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a little bit of math here. We can count 6 energies right now on the side of Zach, whereas Nico only has 1. He did not have access to Welder because he went first in the new turn rules. So Nico definitely has some catching up to do, and one of his main ways to do that is probably going to be with Solgaleo using getting some chip damage in, but you're not taking care of the big threats right now.
No, I mean, of course, Victini V is already there with 190 hit points, which is, plenty. But at the same time, if you can get a knockout onto this Victini V, then you're actually looking quite all right. But at the same time, Zach Lesage already with so many energies in play and already has that Heatran in play, which can one-hit KO that Mewtwo and Mew as long as it can become the active Pokemon. So Nico sees all of this. It's not like he's about to be surprised, but there's a great catcher. This could be a way around that.
Yeah, this is a great way to combat all of these energy placements all over the place. Zach did kind of think about this when he was going for his play. He does have the Heatran in the active spot now because of the great catcher, and it looks like there's not enough energies to go ahead and take the knockout here with Mega Lopunny's attack. Just going to have to use Turbo.
Going to have to use Turbo, but at the same time, now Heatran is the active Pokemon. It has no energy on it, and it already has 120 damage. So it's about to be knocked out. It doesn't really have the ability to attack yet without committing some serious resources. That was a great play out of Nico, and now Zach forced to just pass the turn. Nico gets the draw card. It seemed like Zach's turn 1 was too powerful for Nico, but instead Nico found a way around it and now seems to be in position to really take the advantage here against Zach.
Yeah, this is a spot that's pretty exciting for Nico. He's, of course, seen that he's going to be able to accelerate a ton of energies into play, but he does need to find the right Pokemon, and he doesn't want to play too many onto his Mewtwo perfection. He doesn't want to walk into Victini V coming in and dealing a ton of damage with that second attack.
Nico has put himself in a great position here. Will he continue to accelerate energy through Solgaleo? It seems to be like he's just trying to get a foothold on this game before Zach can do so. Zach was threatening to have a huge knockout on his second turn of the game, but instead Nico has turned the tide and is now starting to prepare his second Mewtwo. There's the knockout. There's a couple more energies coming down, which means Solgaleo using its Turbo Strike to knock out the Heatran and accelerate onto the Mewtwo and Mew sitting on the bench. So now you see so many energy on Nico's side of the board when at first we had a 6-1 energy advantage on Zach's end at the end of turn 1.
Yeah, such a switch, such a big exchange there for these players. We see almost equal energy counts, but you have to think that Nico is favored in this spot. Zach really just doesn't have anything going for him. Going to go ahead and thin with that Giant Hearth, take these fire energies out of his deck. It's almost looks like he has 2 fire energies left in his deck. And for a deck that plays 18, that's pretty incredible that he's been able to go through his deck that fast. But now he has that Jirachi, that Stellar Wish, and he's got to be eyeing up a Welder or something to get him through his deck now.
What is the best possible hit here for the Stellar Wish? I guess we're about to find out. If you're a Zach fan, you're looking for a Welder. There's a Welder. There's a lot of energy in Zach's hand.
Yep, it looks like Zach will be able to get potentially 6 energy onto his Victini V. And, of course, Nico playing just around that mark of energy burst. With 8 energies in total, that would be 240 damage. Just short of a knockout.
And even then, you're committing 6 energies onto 190 HP Pokemon when your opponent already has a Mewtwo and Mew with 3 energies sitting on the bench.
Zach does draw into his last Dedenne and a Vulpix, has Pokemon Communication, so if there is another Pokemon that helps him out in this spot, he certainly could go looking for it.
There is that Pokemon Communication. Like you mentioned, the Vulpix could be going right back into the deck. Instead, we're seeing another Fire Energy for the Victini V. And instead, the Vulpix gets benched. There's a heads, which means the end of the turn here for Zach. Zach not able to get any type of momentum going. Instead, Nico gets to continue his own aggression.
So you can start to see the stars aligning for Zach. It looks like his strategy is going to be using Ninetales in combination with Victini V. Maybe he can take one huge knockout on a Mewtwo tag team and follow that up in combination with Victini Prism Star, as he does have a ton of fire energies in his discard pile. And of course, with that Victini V falling, that would be 6 more fire energies, if not more, falling into the discard pile. Could maybe land another knockout on a Mewtwo.
Also, keep a good eye on that Mega Lopunny with 2 energy on it. With 2 Dedenne sitting on the bench, you're already threatening quite a bit of damage. Just short of being able to one-hit kill the Victini V.
Do see a welder from Nico now. Gets to attach more fire energy to his Pokemon. Already sees that Victini is likely going to reach that threshold to take a knockout with Energy Burst. So going to go ahead and attach those to his active Mewtwo.
Psychic Energy in hand for Nico. Plenty of options available.
It could potentially... Actually, I don't know what other attacks he honestly has. We did see that the Naganadel was in his prize card, so Venom Shot isn't going to be on the table for him. Of course, does have Mega Lopunny that can deal some pretty relevant damage. Even Turbo Strike takes a knockout on this Jirachi, but would like to take a more relevant prize card here, you'd have to believe.
Yeah, of course. You're okay taking a prize here. You bring yourself down to 3, but you would much rather take down that threat of Victini V. Even a Dedenne to bring yourself down to only 2 prizes. There is a great catcher, which means we will likely see the Dedenne get knocked out.
Yeah,
Charizard GX.
I was wondering if he was even eyeing up Puffy Smashers at one point. Could have taken a really cool knockout. But yeah, he's going to go ahead and use that great catcher.
The Dedenne without the Lucky Egg becomes the active Pokemon for Zach. Nico, only 4 prizes remaining, which means once he gets this Dedenne knockout, he'll be down to a single 2-prize knockout to go to win this first game. This is looking pretty solid for Nico, despite Zach starting to build a very powerful Victini V on the bench. There's that knockout. Nico needs only 2 more prizes, while Zach has still yet to deal any damage at all in this first game.
Yeah, that's almost it. Yeah, I think that Zach goes ahead and sees that the writing's on the wall. That is going to be the first game going over to Nico Alabas. Very impressive start to this finals.
So it felt like a little bit of an anticlimactic end when you count the first turn of the game here for Zach. Zach had a great first turn with the exception of finding great attackers.
Sure.
He found 2 energy onto a Dedenne GX, for example, as he was forced to welder onto it. That was threatening something like a Turtonator for the late game, but we never actually got there, as Nico just found the perfect attacker in the Solgaleo, and more importantly, the perfect card as he was able to bring up that Heatran GX and apply damage onto it before Zach could actually use it to his advantage. Do you think maybe Zach should have held on to that Heatran GX instead of laying it down onto the bench? Maybe said, I'll keep this in my hand. It's not a big deal. I don't want to give you that target quite yet. I want to make sure that the Heatran is going to get maximum output.
Right, and I'm curious as to when it was played in the turn. Maybe it was just like forced to be played because the way that it worked with the Dedenne. So if it was at the end, then yeah, that could have just been a slight sequencing there, just holding on to it for one more turn. Of course, you're hoping that your opponent doesn't have access to those 2 great catcher that he plays, but Nico found them at perfect spots in both of the, early and late in the game, was able to take 2 big knockouts when Zach was really hoping otherwise, and that just flipped the tide.
And how about the fact that Zach was never able to actually deal any amount of damage onto Nico this game? This feels really telling of how difficult this matchup could be for Zach if Nico gets going early. Now we see these prizes get laid out. First thing I'm noticing is a couple of welders on Nico's side of the prizes.
I don't think Nico's allowed to use Charizard this game because this match, because he has had it in the prize cards both times now. So 300 damage is not going to be available to him for 4 energies. And I think more crucial is what you stated, that those welders are going to be huge. Zach, of course, with 1 in the prizes. Nico going to have to fight with 2.
Didn't need it game 1. Will he need it game 2? I guess we're about to find out as Nico does begin the first turn despite winning game 1, which means Zach chose to go second.
I told you, welders are important. This is something that both these players understand is going to be one of the biggest keys, and also using your attack on the first turn can be crucial. If you can use Welder in combination with Victini and have another huge turn, I feel like Zach could put himself in a spot where he does actually get to use that Heatran and take a big early knockout.
Now, is Nico comfortable going first? I mean, obviously you have to believe he is, as he won game 1 pretty handily.
Well, when you start Jirachi, everything feels a lot better going first. This is it gives Nico a little bit of room to attach an energy for the turn and use some of these item cards that have been helpful for him. And this also gives him time to go and find cards like Welder, especially with a few in the prize cards. Maybe he lands one early.
Usually getting 2 Jirachi is better than getting 1. Came at a cost of a switch, but will it find him anything relevant? It might not be the case, as I saw a lot of fire energies.
Yeah, it looks like he was mulling over one option in there, and he just went ahead and did not take the card.
So maybe the second Stellar Wish is not as good as the first one in this case, as he is now just Cherish Balling to find a Dedenne GX, and that's telegraphing that we're about to see a Dedenne Dede change into a brand new hand here for Nico.
We'll have to see what the rest of the hand has for him. He does have that Mewtwo and energy attachment as well, and it does look like he has the Dedenne. I thought I saw that Welder.
Oh,
that is super unfortunate, along with a great catcher, I believe. So 2 big cards in the matchup, especially knowing that he has 2 in the prize cards. He's going to have to accelerate energies by way of the discard pile if he wants to get things rolling.
There's a Quick Ball and a Giant Hearth in hand for Nico. No supporter quite yet, and Nico still doesn't know that 2 of his Welders are in the deck. So he knows that if he didn't have that information, it would have hurt him even more to have to use Dede change in that spot.
I see 4 energies. Yeah, that's 4 energies off of Dedenne. This is where Zach would love to be here with his Victini V. This is a great way for him to really charge up his board. Gonna have to see if his hand goes along with it.
Getting 6 new cards when you can still play a supporter is usually a feel-good moment, but I'm looking at a Quick Ball, which is great, but I don't have multiple Pokemon in the hand. I think there's a Vulpix and a Quick Ball. That was basically it with some more energies.
Yeah, he does have that Quick Ball. He also has a Switch in hand, so maybe if he were to find Dedenne or something relevant, like some Quick Ball or Cherish Ball off of his Jirachi, then he could put himself in a great spot where this hand could continue to push, but he also has the Victini with the energies and the Switch ready to go. And then off of that Dedenne, if he finds a Pokemon that he could charge up, he'd be in an amazing spot. We could see 6 energies or more coming, just flowing onto this board.
That Quick Ball was a huge first step, but the hand still needs a little bit of help. The Stellar Wish is going to have to provide Zach with a way to get an additional Pokemon in order for Zach to really take a big first turn here one more time through that Victini V. We're seeing a Stellar Wish. Are we going to have another Pokemon to join the field? There's a Welder.
Yeah, it does find Welder, so that's a way that he could continue this process. He can go ahead and accelerate those energies onto a Pokemon like his Victini if he doesn't feel like it's going to be threatened, or he could maybe just push those energies around onto his Dedenne like he did earlier in the game, the first game here. And off of these 3 cards, if he's able to continue to push through, find a Pokemon that he can accelerate energies to with Victini, I'm sure that Zach would feel like he's in a great spot.
There's 3 redraws here with the Welder as 2 fire energies go down. A Quick Ball, the very first card we find, which is a huge find here for Zach. It's going to allow Zach to get basically the best Pokemon he can in this possible situation. And why not enjoy a Vulpix to go with the party?
Yeah, this is looking pretty incredible for him. Also has that extra energy attachment too, so will be able to reach 6 energies on this opening turn. Has the Switch here, so he can go ahead and move into that Victini V, and we'll see if he decides to hold on to this this Quick Ball so that he has a Dedenne on the following turn.
And it could be a Dedenne, of course, and even if he top decks something into something, he could always find the Quick Ball to find something like the Heatran GX. Remember, the Heatran does not need to be in play to have these energies applied to it. So that's a great way for Zach to start his first turn in the second game. He's already down 1-0. This is looking like it may be a way for him to climb back and even things up at 1 apiece. Nico, on the other hand, remember, didn't have a stellar start, had to discard that Welder, and has 2 Welders in the prizes. This could be a very difficult game for Nico to pull off.
We see Nico does have that weakness card energy, but he is going to be taking slower turns. You'd have to feel, being that he only has that 1 Welder left. And we do see that it is in his deck right there. He passed it. So
now he gets this first look at the deck. Looks like he was, take another look. There is still no Welder in there. There's only 1.
Man.
That is really bad news for Nico, and he's just getting it right now. Quick Ball allows him to see the deck one more time and find any basic Pokemon in there.
It looks like he is going to eye up another Mewtwo Perfection. If he does have a way to continue to draw through his deck, maybe a Dedenne in his hand, then he could get those energies in his discard pile. And yeah, this is what I was thinking. If he doesn't have the Dedenne, go ahead and grab the Dedenne now. You can get 2 fire energies in your discard pile, and then, of course, you're probably going to find one of those helpful item cards or the Mewtwo Perfection itself off of the Dede change.
Now that's just going to mean 2 Dedennes on the field here for Nico. We saw how that was uncomfortable for Zach game 1. Could be uncomfortable for Nico as well, as he also has 2 Jirachis on the field to go with it. Now 6 new cards for Nico as Dede change discards the rest of Nico's hand to draw him 6 new ones. Now a Stellar Wish.
Yep, not sure if we saw a way to switch out just yet. Finds a Quick Ball. Don't know if that's going to be the best card for him in this situation.
The discard of a Mewtwo and Mew tag team to find a Victini V signals that Nico is not comfortable having 2 Mewtwo's and Mews as the only attackers this game.
Yeah, this is almost the opposite of what game 1 was for us. Nico now with these Dedennes in play. Oh, does have the escape board, so does have a way to retreat. Can go ahead and bring up this Mewtwo with Perfection and copy that Solgaleo's Turbo Strike and start to charge up his Victini V.
That escape board allows the Jirachi to get onto the bench, and now Mewtwo and Mew is going to get the first attack of the game, or the first damaging attack of the game, as Turbo Strike, again, very reminiscent of Game 1, with the exception that Zach no longer has a Heatran GX stuck in the active position without any way to attack with it. So that is the one key difference here between these two games. Now, will Zach finally get his first damage of the match on the board here? It seems that way, as Victini V is already threatening to deal a lot of damage.
Well, Zach holding on to that Quick Ball. Looks like it's going to pay off for him. He is going to have that Dedenne to start this turn. We have not seen Welder. We haven't seen anything from him just yet, because this is the beginning of the turn for him. So this turn starts with 6, 7 energies now, and it could end with potentially 9.
Technically, it could end with more if he decides to Spreading Flames again, but
that'd be
I
a
doubt
bad
we'll see
choice.
that happen. The Dede change, 6 new cards.
Where is Heatran?
The attacker of choice, no doubt, if he can find a Heatran. And I see a Pokemon communication, but I do not see any Pokemon yet.
Yeah, we do see multiple Fiery Flint, so we'll be able to go ahead and get a ton of fire energies from his deck. Could even go ahead and toss one with the Giant Hearth, maybe grab 2 fire energies here, and then use that second Fiery Flint if he really wants to just burn through his deck right now in order to make way for that Welder to draw him into a relevant Pokemon for Pokemon communication.
I think that's what Zach's mapping out. Can he afford to use a Fiery Flint right now? Will he want to? Seems like the Heatran GX is the optimal Pokemon right now. Doesn't seem to be any real other choice that you would want to go with.
Looks like he is content with that. He's
There's
going
a
to go ahead
Welder.
and draw those 3 cards. Would love to find a Pokemon.
I
Last
think he got
card.
it. Yes, he did. He got a Turtonator with that last card off the Welder, which means we're going to see a communication. Bring that Turtonator right back into the deck. We don't need you quite yet, but stay strong, because I believe we're going to see it at some point in this game if Zach's going to actually pull off a victory. Now, the Heatran GX is going to be the Pokemon of choice. Here it comes onto the hand. Big difference between Game 1 and Game 2 is that it was not sitting in play. It was not sitting there waiting for Nico to actually take advantage of. Instead, it's going to be a Heatran GX at the opportune moment, and we may see a huge knockout onto Mewtwo and Mew right now.
Yeah, you see Zach just diligently going to go ahead and place those 2 Welders back into his deck with the Pal Pad, just getting himself set up for the best possible return if Nico were to be able to have an answer to this Heatran on the following turn. I want to go ahead and give a nod to Nico. He went ahead and saw that his opponent was very likely going to have this huge knockout on the Mewtwo and Mew. So he went ahead and charged up his Victini V, has that energy burst available on the following turn, and doesn't have to worry about 2 tag team Pokemon being knocked out back-to-back on Zach's side. Made it a little bit harder to come back here.
There's the switch, which means Heatran GX gets its Burning Road on, as we now have 3 energy, potentially a 4th. There it is, the 4th energy onto the Heatran GX, which means we're 5th energy onto the Heatran GX, and 6th energy onto the Heatran GX. There it is. We're now going to have a Hot Burn GX for 300 damage, which means a huge knockout, 300 damage on the Mewtwo and Mew, and that's 3 prizes for Zach Lesage.
Thanks, Count.
I got you.
All right, now over on Nico's side, does have a very easy answer to this Heatran, but the prize cards have already been taken for Zach. Zach is pushing through this game, already halfway done, has plenty of fire energies that are soon going to be in his discard pile, so Victini Prism Star will have plenty of work lined up for it. Going to have to see what else Nico goes with here. And, of course, remember that he does not have access to many welders, just the one left, so getting these energies in play is going to be pretty difficult.
There's one welder sold in the deck somewhere in there. But that's about it. This is looking like it's going to be a Zach Lesage game 2. We need to see a little bit more Nico magic otherwise. There's a Stellar Wish. Are we going to find us a welder?
Looks like he found himself a switch.
Which is another shot at a welder potentially.
Yep, could go ahead and retreat with that escape board, go to his other Jirachi, hold that switch, and then make use of it when he goes to his Victini V.
So we know that he's going to have an energy burst at some point this game, or at some point this turn. That's going to mean a huge knockout onto that Heatran GX, which is going to mean 6 energies off the field for Zach. But Zach's Heatran GX has already done its job, right? There's still going to be a few energies remaining on the field, and that's going to mean 6 energies in the discard pile. So now Victini Prism Star is going to be able to get a potential big knockout in return.
That's right.
Does Nico have an answer to that Victini Prism Star return KO? Not yet, anyway. He's going to need that welder to do so.
Nico finds himself a Cherish Ball, could potentially land that last Dedenne, but of course his bench is starting to look pretty atrocious, hasn't gotten much else going for him.
Yeah, normally you don't want to have 2 Dedenne, 2 Jirachi on the field, and sometimes when you do, your Jirachi just gets knocked out, and that opens up a natural spot, but instead, you can only play basically one more Pokemon, and it's looking like it's going to be that Mewtwo and Mew that we just saw right there.
Yep, needed to get an energy attachment down in order to set himself up for potential big attacks in the following turn. Victini V taking a huge knockout on this Heatran, but as expected.
Still the welders in the prizes.
Oh, man.
That was one potential way that he could have found it. I bet that he was banking. He's like, I know there's 2 welders in the prizes. I'm about to take 2 prizes. Maybe I'll find one, but instead he does not. So now Zach.
I think we're up to 8 fire in the discard pile now. Looks like
there's a way to get a 9th.
It's not too hard to get more in there, but is there enough to pull off an insane combination with Ninetales, 9 Temptations, bringing up a Mewtwo and using Victini in combination with Welder to take this tag team off the board this turn?
Looks like Zach's running the numbers to see if he can. Is that the only 2? There's about 3 more fires in the deck still.
Yep, he has 3 left in deck.
Double checks. Do we have a knockout yet? If we have, you said there's about 8 currently?
Yeah,
9 maybe now? Oh, it's going to be close. Does Zach have the way to get a Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX knockout with Victini Prism Star? You have to believe that Zach's counting it up. He's trying to see if he's got the KO quite yet. If not, then he'll have a consolation KO on the Victini V.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be too bad for him. Going to see if Jirachi can help him out. Does find a switch, but looking at more importantly, that Welder is going to help him accelerate the energies if he were to get the Victini going this turn. But he would have to find 14 energies in the discard pile, and it seems like a lot of work for him.
I only see something like 8. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
Could use Fiery Flint to go ahead and put 2 more in the discard pile. 9 Temptations on the Ninetales would put 2 more in.
Turtonator can't get there quite yet, right?
Potentially, if he had a switch, then he could.
Maybe the Turtonator can get there. Maybe we haven't counted up the Turtonator damage quite yet.
That's right. So he does have 3 on board. So if he does have the Welder.
If he gets 3 more, that's 300.
Yes.
Can he get 3 more? I would think so.
That is one of the benefits of being able to accelerate all these energies early in the game, that even when the Heatran was knocked out, he had so many energy in play that he's actually lined up for Turtonator.
There's a Welder.
Take a big knockout.
Welder gets 2 fires onto play. That's 5 fires in play quite right now. Still hasn't attached for the turn.
Don't think he has access to that Ninetales, though.
Communication first because he needed to get that welder onto the right Pokemon. No Ninetales in sight, of course. That's basically your catcher. Those 9 Temptations right there. Plays an escape board. Did Nico get a reprieve here? Retreats Jirachi. Oh, Nico's got to be wondering, are you slow rolling the Ninetales? Please don't.
Oh, I highly doubt that would happen here. But this is also a pretty great setup for Zach. We know that he's holding on to that Victini Prism Star along with a welder in his hand. So all these energies hitting the discard pile means that getting this last prize card for him should be pretty simple. Going to go ahead and Explosive Jet, take this Victini V off the board. Zach Lesage, 1 prize away from taking us to Game 3 here.
The Lucky Egg, the final prize. Nico with 4 prizes still remaining against Zach's only 1.
Well, we know that Nico does play 2 reset stamps, so finding one of those could be huge here for him.
There's a Naganadel. This is getting close. This is getting tense. Nico needs to have a huge turn here. Despite the Turtonator having no energy on it, it's already done its job.
Yeah, we do see both reset stamp hugging each other in the deck. So Nico just going to go ahead and take as many of these Pokemon out of his deck as possible. Potentially eyeing up that Stellar Wish to find that reset stamp.
Oh, this is taking a while because Nico is trying to find a way to climb back in this. He knows that Zach has a very easy knockout with pretty much anything. At the same time, there's a Turtonator just kind of stuck up there. So you may have some time if you don't get a knockout here. Especially if you find a reset stamp. I think we're seeing a Giant Hearth. Yes, we are, as the Latios GX gets discarded in order to find a Fire Energy.
I mean, Nico's board is pretty bad. He doesn't really have anything that he can work with here. He's just going to have to go all in with this Mewtwo. We'll see if he does find that reset stamp so that he can start to slow down everything that Zach has had going on for him.
There is 13 Fire Energies in the discard pile.
Finds his last welder.
There's the only welder. His first welder and his last welder.
His last welder. Maybe if you get some prize
Fire
cards.
Energies in the discard pile, Kyle.
Yep, that is really starting to add up here.
I mean, that's a knockout on anything but the Mewtwo and Mew. And pretty close to the Mewtwo and Mew knockout there, too.
All right, we are going to see these energies accelerated onto the Mewtwo. Would love to find a reset stamp in combination with a big attack here.
There's the welder. There's no reset stamp. I don't believe. Yes, there is.
Yes.
I take it back. The reset stamp brings Zach Lesage down to a 1-card hand to match the 1 prize. And with a Turtonator sitting up there with that hefty retreat cost and 0 energy, the exhausted Turtonator may not allow Zach to get the last prize.
Now, we did see that Nico did go for the Naganadel with Venom Shot at one point. Not sure if he's going to go ahead and target down one of these Pokemon to take a big knockout or if he's got something else lined up for us.
Venom Shot could obviously take the knockout onto Dene and bring you down to 2 prizes.
I would just knock out a
or the
Victini
Victini
or
V, of
something
course.
at that point,
Yeah.
man. I could even take out that Jirachi and just really leave Zach in top deck mode all the way through so that even a switch wasn't an optimal card for him. Also just
Now
depends.
Jirachi retreating.
Nico could just take the risk here if he does know that maybe if he has some access to fire energies, then he takes the 50-50 here, takes a 2-prize knockout with Venom Shot,
There's
sees
Venom
if he
Shot.
can find a welder.
Is it going to be
It's
Jirachi?
not Venom Shot. He's actually going for the Stinger play here.
Oh, he's going for Stinger GX. Okay. Okay, so Stinger GX, first of all, shuffles the welders back into the deck for Nico.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty great play that he's lined up for himself as well. He knows that Zach now has to work through this with the board that's currently in play. There's no real way for a big knockout to happen unless Zach were to get 3 energies onto his Victini along with a switching effect, and he has 1 card in his hand.
This is genius, Kyle. This is one.
Still prized a welder.
One, the welders were obviously in the prizes, and Nico knew that he was going to want to get potentially access to 1 more. At the same time, Zach has a Turtonator up and only a 1-card hand, so it's not like you're under any type of pressure. It's very realistic that Zach can just draw a card, Giant Hearth, and pass.
Right, and now this sets up for Nico to go ahead and attach, maybe use a Venom Shot on a Pokemon that he wants to take off the board, still leave the Turtonator in place, and then he can take that knockout to win the match on the following turn here.
The line of play makes sense. Zach has a great board if he doesn't have a Turtonator up there.
Zach has a Ninetales and 2 energy in hand. If that was a welder, then we could see an incredible turn, but no, it looks like the tide has shifted once more. Nico continuing here, only has 6, 7 cards in his deck now, but doesn't really care. He sees that he's so close to closing out this match.
Found the right line of play to mitigate the amount of pressure that Zach had dealt to him the entire early game, and now attaches another Psychic Energy. I believe that's now 5 energy on the field for Nico.
He should have enough energies to close out this game now. He can go ahead and use Venom Shot, remove the Victini from play if he so chooses, and then he can follow that up with even Mega Lopunny to knock out the Turtonator. Wisely also
goes for Jirachi.
Yeah, he goes ahead and takes out the Jirachi, so any switch top deck is now not going to work. And guess what he drew off the top?
I'm going to assume that's a switch.
That's
Kyle.
a switch.
And, okay, Zach now looking through the discard pile for Nico, looking to see if he can find anything to get himself out of this. He does still have a switch, which is at least something, but instead you have to believe that there is just no answer here. There's a Ninetales potentially trying to stall the game, maybe bring up a Dedenne. There it is, brings up the Dedenne. That's about the only play Zach has available to him. A switch is going to allow him to actually attack with the Victini V, but that's not a winning play. He's down to a 0-card hand, and I guess...
Yeah, he's just gonna go ahead and hope that his opponent doesn't have this escape board in hand, but we already know that Nico is holding on to this. He goes ahead and attaches the escape board.
The hand comes out as Nico Alabas wins 2-0 against Zach Lesage. A perfect line of play with that Stinger GX. Just found the right answer, despite the fact that Zach got so far ahead in Game 2. In the early part of Game 2, Nico slowed the game down to the point where that Turtonator being up there with no energy was the defeat that Zach wanted to avoid.
Yeah, there was a very scary moment